So as I pinned my tweet today, I've decided to reclaim free speech. Now, as you've noticed, freedom of speech has been narrowed and narrowed by what other people are telling you is polite or appropriate to say. And there have always been words that you wanted to stay away from. For example, the N-word. I personally find that word offensive. And so I don't even know how I could get it out of my mouth. It's the worst of all words in the entire English language. I think I could say this safely. It's literally the worst word in the English language. So if you let's say roll back the tape to a few years ago and you say, Scott, do you find yourself oppressed because white people can't use the N-word? And I would say, no. No. Is that a big ask? Is that like really inconveniencing you? That you can't use the worst word in the whole frickin' language? The most insulting, demeaning, worst word ever? No. It's no big deal. Now, does that reduce my freedom of speech? Yes. Yes. You know, in a practical sense, not in a government legal sense. But in a practical sense, that word and your freedom to use it in polite society is effectively removed. But you don't really miss it, right? You don't really miss it. So it doesn't bother you. But then more and more things get added, and the realm of things you can talk about shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. And at some point you have to say to yourself, okay, that's far enough. You know, because remember, I always tell you that the slippery slope isn't real, because eventually there'll be a counterforce that pops up. Here it is. So I'm one small example of the counterforce. So here's something I tweeted today, which I'm not allowed to say. And that's why I pinned it, because I'm going to reclaim that space. Now, I'm not going to push all the way back to, I need to say the N-word. There's no other word that can work for me. No. I'm not going to be a jerk. I have no interest in offending people whatsoever. There's nothing, I don't get any advantage from that. Why would I do it? So without wanting to offend anybody and wanting to be helpful, which I always am, I tweeted this: white privilege is a racist term. In my opinion, anyone who uses it is either a racist, an idiot, or an asshole. But rich privilege is the thing. You know, obviously rich people have privilege. So that's my statement. Now, I would say that maybe a week ago, I would have been canceled for saying this. And I think only one troll has come after me so far. I swatted him down. But to me personally, the term white privilege, and I think a lot of you would have the same effect, is nothing but racist. Because what it does is basically it throws poor white people under the bus. Now, I'm not a poor white person. Not anymore. I used to be. I used to be a poor white person. But I also had an education, so, you know, I wasn't disadvantaged. I had a way to get money. So just being clear about that. So certainly being educated is an advantage, being tall is an advantage, good looking, healthy. Healthy is an advantage, where you're born, who your parents are, not being a drug addict, not having mental health problems. We have a world full of advantages. If you're going to pull out one of them and say, oh, this is the special one, that's the bad one, you know, you can't have that special advantage, even if you imagine it exists. So, let me be as clear as possible. White privilege is not imaginary, but everybody has a little bit of privilege for different things. There is also black privilege. What would be an example of black privilege? Well, freedom of speech. Black people have freedom of speech in a way that white people simply don't. Nobody, even, you know, I don't think there's even a black person who would disagree with that statement. It is objectively clear that black people have more freedom of speech. So and I don't find myself complaining about it too much. Like it's just something you notice, but it doesn't really affect your life too much. It's like, oh, yeah, there are a few things you could say that I couldn't say. How much does that affect my life? Not at all. Not at all. It's no big deal. So, do I care that tall people get paid more? Because that's established beyond any doubt. Do I care? Yeah, I care. Because that's an advantage I don't have. I wish I did. How about handsome people, strong people, healthy people, people whose parents were awesome? There's a million kinds of advantages. Picking out this one privilege or one advantage that you're being white doesn't matter if it's true or false. It is just racist, right? It is racist to talk about white privilege in exactly the way it's racist to talk about a high crime rate in the black community. Why do white people cross the road if they see, let's say, 10 black youths, let's say 20-somethings, coming the other direction, and you don't know what their deal is? Is that racist? Every group has their own privilege, and let's just acknowledge it. Why not just say there's lots of privileges, find your advantage and talk about that? So I no longer acknowledge the category of black problems. They're just problems. And by the way, Ed Latimer, I think he pushed me over the edge on this. Do you all know Ed Latimer on Twitter? So he's African American, but he doesn't buy into let's say he's not drinking all the Kool-Aid. So when you see his advice, and that's mostly what his Twitter feed is about, is sort of blunt truth advice from his perspective. First of all, his advice is typically brilliant. It's some of the best, most usable, functional way to frame your reality that you'll ever see. So it's really important. And he tweeted the other day, I don't have the exact tweet, but the essence of it was that your problems aren't special. So this is Ed saying, your problems aren't special. And I wish I had the exact quote, but he said something like, no matter what your problem is, there's somebody in the world who has that same fucked up problem and fixed it. No matter what your problem is, somebody's had that problem and fixed it. Now, that's just the most useful way to see the world that you'll ever know. All right? And that's almost a recording that runs in my head all the time and always has since I was a kid, which is, yeah, you got problems. They're not special. And somebody has had your fucking problem before and they solved it. So how about that? How about maybe you figure out how to solve your problem? So that's my new frame on this. I'm no longer going to have a conversation about fixing black problems, but I'll have lots of conversations about fixing poor people's problems. Just people who are poor. If anybody wants to have a conversation, and actually I'm deeply involved in this category, because I think where this needs to go is lowering the cost of a good life, from housing to energy to your phone bill, just making all that stuff affordable so that somebody who didn't get a great start in life can still get into a good life and then build from there. In other words, if you handled all your basic living requirements at a low income, well, then maybe you can take some classes. Maybe you can, work on building your skills and get to the next level. So if you want to work on the problem of how do poor people of any type, rise up, I'm all over that. Acknowledging, of course, that as a percentage, that would be far more helpful for black people than other groups, just because of the way the percentages work. But I don't want to talk about black problems anymore. All right? Now, could I have said that a week ago? No, a week ago that would be considered racist, and I believe that it will be considered racist today. So I expect I'll get some blowback. But what I'm doing is what some of you can't do. You couldn't have pinned that quote because you would get fired. So the things that I'm going to be saying in the next few weeks are almost entirely things that would get every one of you fired. You don't need to retweet me, okay? You don't even need to follow me. In fact, it's going to be dangerous to follow me. You might want to unfollow me and just check my Twitter feed if you're interested. So I wouldn't necessarily think it's a good idea to follow me in the coming weeks. But here's what you need to know. Here's the larger picture. I do not have any negative intentions. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. All right? I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not even taking sides. All I'm saying is I'm done with white privilege as being something I will accept as polite conversation. It's just not polite conversation. It has no place in public discourse. If you want to say there is rich person privilege, I will agree, and I'll say, yeah, you're talking about me now. Do I have privilege? Hell yes. Are you freaking kidding me? Do you know how much extra privilege you get when you're rich? It's fucking amazing. You should try it. You should try it. You should do whatever you can to get it because it's so good you won't even believe it. So yeah, there's rich privilege, and I will do whatever I can that makes sense for my skill set, etc., to help poor people, whatever they look like, to get what I got. I would like poor people to get what I got. Extra freedom. You want some extra freedom? I think I can help. You know, that's why I wrote the book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. You will see on Twitter literally every day people refer to that book and say how it changed their life, how they learned how to stack skills, how to use systems instead of goals. Pretty simple stuff. But just those simple reframings allowed them to build their life substantially in usually a year or two. You know, fairly quick results. So I would love those sorts of useful tools to be more widely available to people who need a hand, whoever they may be. But talking about black problems is just being a sucker to the manipulation of social media and people who are, you know, jockeying for power and the political process. I declare myself a free person. I declare myself a free person. I'm free. I don't have to frame it the way you tell me to frame it. I don't care that I'm not ignoring it because statistically there's something there. And there are, you know, real ripples from slavery. It's all real. It's just not special. That's the difference. The problem is real. It's just not special.